Praise the Lord, for He's worthy. Blessings, everyone. So we'll be starting chapter 3, present and future active indicative. The present and future active indicative. Let us dive right into our course. May the Lord strengthen us and bless us and give us grace and understanding so that we can apply what we learn. All right? So related patterns of verbs are known as conjugations. From Latin, coniugo, I join together. Right? I join together. The entire Greek verb system may be divided into two basic conjugations, the omega conjugation and the me conjugation. So these are the two. You have the omega and me, mi, me conjugation. These terms refer to the ending of the first person singular suffix in the present active stem. The older but much smaller of the two systems is the me conjugation. The most common me verb is a me, I am. A me, used about 2,500 times in the Greek New Testament. However, the great majority of New Testament verbs belong to the omega conjugation, right here, omega conjugation. Mastering this conjugation is therefore essential before attempting to read the Greek New Testament. This lesson introduces the conjugations of luo, I lose, in the present and future active indicative, and the conjugation of a me, I am, in the present indicative. So there are two words that we're going to be introduced to, luo and emi. These are the two words that we are going to be introduced to. The primary active suffixes. Let me just take off some of my notes here. Do I have more notes? I will look at scribble. Okay. All right. You will recall that the Greek primary tenses are the present, the future, the perfect, and the future perfect. And we just saw that at the end of chapter 2. In the indicative mood, the primary tenses deal with present and or future time, whereas the secondary tenses are oriented to the past. Greek has separate sets of person number suffixes for the primary tenses and for the secondary tenses. Only the primary suffixes concern us in this lesson. In the active indicative, these suffixes are. So we're not really focusing on the secondary suffixes right now, just the primary suffixes. Remember, the suffix is the addition to the word at the end, right? That's what we are looking at. So already we were introduced to these suffixes, right? And I told you that you're going to see them over and over again. So just memorize them. The omega is first person. There you go. First person singular. Remember, this is singular. Okay, singular here. This is plural over here. So all of this is plural. All of that is singular. So let me just see if I could make that a little bit more beautiful. So all of that is singular. All of this is plural, right? And then you have the EIS, and then you have the EI. So this is first, second, third person. And then you have the plural now. And this is first, second, third person. Mente, use. These are the suffixes that are going to be added to the word. So the first person is I. Second person singular is you. Third person singular is he, she, or it. First person plural, we. Second person plural, you, mean all of you. And the third person plural is they. So in addition, Greek adds a vowel before the suffixes. So men and te are going to get a vowel. This vowel, known as a connecting vowel, right, function as a phonological cushion between the verb and the stem and the suffix. The connected vowel is o before mem and nu and epsilon before all other letters. The connecting vowel is sometimes called a neutral morpheme, since it is added solely for the sake of pronunciation and does not affect meaning. So we're going to encounter an omicron or an epsilon if there is a mem or a nu, or in all others, the epsilon. Okay? So what does that look like? So here, remember, our main word is luo, I lose. So luo means I lose. Now, how do I get I lose? Why? Because this is first person singular. The omega is first person singular. So you're going to say I because it's first person singular, right? EIS is what? Second person singular. So you, right? So lues, you lose, singular. And So EIS is second person singular and EI is third person singular. He, she, or it loses. So you're going to get Lu A, he, she, or it loses. Then you move to the plural form. You have the future tense, before the plural form, they give us the future. And the future is just known by this addition of a sigma between the stem and the ending. So remember, the ending is lu, right? And then you add like omega, EIS, or EI, right? But the lu is the stem. Remember, we talk about stem form, the lexical form, all of that, root form. So the lu is the stem form. Now, you add a sigma. This sigma is a future time morpheme, right? So this is something that you add to the stem. Then you add your ending, your omega, your EIS, and your E, right? That's how you make a future tense. So you get I will lose, you will lose, he will lose. So that's the present tense and the future tense. So these are the two tenses that he's introducing you to right now. Now let's go to the plural forms. In the present tense, remember you add the omicron. Why? Because it's a neutral morpheme to the stem. So you have lu plus omicron plus men, M-E-N. Remember men, ete, and O-U-S-I. Keep that in mind, right? So we have that already. So now this equals to we, because it's first person plural. We lose. Then you have lu ete, and since this E is a neutral morpheme that's added because it's really te, that's the ending. Then you have you lose, plural. Then you have lu, and then O-U-S-I is added, they lose. And then in the plural for the future, remember the sigma travels as well to the future tense, and it's the same thing, right? You have the stem plus the future morpheme, which is the sigma, plus the neutral morpheme, plus the ending. So here you have the lu, which is stem, then the sigma, then the neutral morpheme, which is the omicron, plus the ending. So there are 4 parts to this word, and you get we will lose. And you just remember, keep in mind that the main thing is the stem. What is going on? That's the stem. And what's added to the stem? So you have the stem here, and then you have the future morpheme, then you have the neutral morpheme, and then the ending, you plural. And then you have the stem, you have the future morpheme, and then you have the neutral morpheme, and then you have the usi, and then you have this N right here, they will lose. So this we're going to come to shortly because he explains it for us exactly what is going on. So let's explain this chart a little bit more in depth. What I love about Greek is this. With Greek, it builds upon itself. Like that crane. Remember I tell you these cranes that build skyscrapers, how these cranes are able to build themselves to get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. The more the building goes up. Is the same thing for Greek. The more the building goes up is the more, the Greek builds on itself, so to speak. So even though at the beginning it seems a bit overwhelming, maybe you think I'm moving too fast or all of that, but because it's a video, you could always go back and rewatch the video and slow it down or whatever. Send me an email if something is not clear to you. But the main feature distinguishing these two paradigms is the stem. By removing the omega from luo, we obtain the present stem, lu. The conjugation of the present active indicative of any omega verb can be obtained by 1. Substituting the present stem of the verb for lu, and then adding the primary active suffixes along with the appropriate connecting vowels. Thus, for example, the present active indicative of grapho, I write, is, here you go, grapho, I write, and then you have ace, you singular, and then you have a, third person singular, then you have the neutral morpheme, then men, first person plural, then you have the morpheme, then te, second person plural. So in this case, you have graphes, which would be you write singular, then you have graphe, which would be he, she, or it writes singular, then you have graphomen, which is we write, and then you have graphete, which is you write, and then you have graphusi or graphusin, which is they write. Now, by removing the omega from luso, we obtain the future stem lus. So L, U, and plus the sigma, now you have a new stem. This is called a future stem. Notice that Greek indicates future time by adding a sigma, and I already just went through that. To the present stem, this sigma is called the future time morpheme and is equivalent in meaning to the auxiliary verb will. Thus, the analysis of lose men, we will lose, is lose, lexical morpheme, plus the future time morpheme, and I just went through all of that. This may also be shown graphically as follows, and then all that I went through right here is what he's practically doing there in a nicer form. Observe that the only difference between the forms of the present tense and the future tense is that the future tense form contains the future time morpheme, which is the sigma. The first person singular form luo is called the present active principal part, while the first person singular form luso is called the future active principal part, because the principal part really means it's built on the stem. The stem is the principal part. Then you can morph into whatever you want to add to the stem. A verb that is regular has 6 principal parts, each of which has the first person singular ending. Present and future principal parts are presented together in the vocabulary to this lesson. So in essence, he's not going through the 6 principal parts because he's of the opinion that, listen, you don't need to memorize and try to just get that right now, right? But as you go along, you will be introduced to the different parts of the stem. And these are the parts that you use to conjugate the word accordingly. All right? So let's talk about amalgamation in the future tense. Numerous Greek verbs form the future tense by adding a sigma to the present stem. However, when the stem of a verb ends in a consonant, a phonological change will occur when the future time morpheme sigma is attached. These changes may be summarized as follows. So you have P, beta, and phi plus sigma form the double consonant psi. Thus, the future of pempo isen is pempso from pempt plus so. So just because the stem, remember, stem is the lexical form. Because the stem ends with P, whenever a P, here we go, whenever a P, a beta, or a phi encounters a sigma. Remember, if you're going to make the future tense, you have to add the future time morpheme, which is the sigma, to the stem. So whenever the stem ends in one of these letters and you add the sigma, something is going to happen. There's going to be a morphing. There's going to be a change in the letter. And so in this case, it ends with P, and so the P becomes psi. But you can still hear the sun, you can still hear the sigma in it. The psi, you notice the sigma is still there. If the stem ends with kappa, gamma, or chi plus the sigma, there is a doubling of the consonant. So you get the xi. You can still notice that the sigma is still there. Thus the future of ago, and because the word ago, the stem ag, remember the omega is the first person singular. The ag, because it ends with gamma, when you add the sigma to the gamma, you're going to turn it into a xi. So axo, because this is the xi here, becomes the future tense. And by the way, this just relates to the future. Okay, future. As you see here, future tense. This is just the future, right? Sorry. And then finally, whenever the stem ends with tau, delta, theta, well, one of them drops out in the future tense. So you have petho. Notice it ends with a theta. If you want to put it in the future tense, the theta drops out. Now you have peso. I will trust it. All right. Note, however, that if the verb stem is different from the present stem, as is sometimes the case, the verb time morpheme sigma is added to the verb stem instead of the present stem. For example, the verb stem of keruso, I preach, is not kerus. Notice there's not a double sigma, kerus, but keruk. This is the stem. So this is one of the weird forms. You're going to say, how would I know that is keruk? So therefore, from keruk is from kerukso. Why? Because there's a kappa here. And whenever there's a kappa and a sigma, you get a xi, kappa and a sigma. You get a xi by the rules given above, right? Similarly, the verb stem of baptizo, baptize, notice, is not baptiz. Even though you have baptizo here, but the verb stem is baptid, did. Baptid, and because it's a delta, the delta has to drop out when you want to form the future tense. Now, these stems are rare, and I think these stems you're just going to have to memorize and know. Like the stem for keruso, keruk, and baptid. These stems you're just going to have to memorize. So when you're forming the future tense of baptizo, notice the delta has to drop out here. Baptizo. In all these cases, amalgamation is said to have occurred. Right? So this is just dealing with amalgamations when you are dealing with the future, right? Just keep that in mind. Amalgamation in the future tense. All right, let's continue. More on the person number suffixes. The person number suffixes omega, ace, a, men, te, usi probably had their origin in the attachment of independent personal pronouns to the stem of the verb. This means that each Greek verb has a built-in internal subject. When an internal subject for a verb is given, the internal subject is not translated. Thus, lue is he loses, but Jesus lue is Jesus loses, and in this case, Jesus is the he. So you don't have to say he, Jesus, loses. Okay, so here you go. Not Jesus, he loses, or he, Jesus loses. Since pronoun suffixes do not indicate gender, lue may also be translated she loses, or it loses, depending on the context. But the subject is embedded in the verb. So, okay? So, for once you see lue, you just know he loses, right? So if you see Jesus lue, you just say Jesus loses. Right? That's all there is. Notice also that Greek distinguishes between second person singular and second person plural, a distinction not made by English. So he says, see John 4:20-22. Greek does not, however, have familiar and polite forms of the second person as in French, German, and other languages. Name dropping on us, right? Because he knows these languages, right? A slave and a master would have addressed each other in the second person singular. Finally, the phoneme nu is sometimes added to the third person plural. So here, where is it? Right here. This is it, right? This is it right here. Notice he puts the nu in brackets. See this right here? The nu is in brackets. Why is it in brackets? For the third person, they will lose. Why is it in brackets? This is what he's explaining now. So let's hear what he says. He says, it is in brackets sometimes. Why? Is added to the third person plural suffix usi, especially before a word beginning with a vowel. So if the word that follows it begin with a vowel or at the end of a clause or a sentence, as in luhusin anthropous, they lose men, the usage is called the movable nu. So because this is an alpha, then the n is added. For pronunciation or grammar sake, I don't know, but that's the way it is. If the following word begins with a vowel, an N is added when you're dealing with the third person plural. Usi. So remember, third person plural is O-U-S-I, right? And if there's a vowel here that begins this word over here, then you're going to add an N right there. So you get usin. Pretty much what he's saying. So this usage is called the movable nu. Movable nu. As with a and an in English. An apple. This type of phonetic modification does not affect the meaning of the individual word or morpheme. Slightly different forms of a morpheme, example, usi and usin, are called allomorphs, from allos, another kind. Right? Remember, you have two words for kind, and maybe you don't know that still. You have heteros and allos. Okay? Those are the words. You have the same kind or the same kind of a different nature, or the same kind of the same nature, right? So that's something you're going to come across in the Bible. So let's not get too much into that. Right? But you're going to see that comes out. For instance, Paul mentions it in Galatians chapter 3, where he uses these words, where the Galatians were turned into a gospel of a different kind. Not the same kind, but a different kind. Right? So let's talk about uses of the present and perfect. As we have seen, the aspect denoted by the present indicative may be aoristic, right? Though it is usually imperfective. As I said, there is this word again, intersection. They intersect. Hence, luo may be rendered either I loose or I am loosing, depending on the context. These uses are called the simple present and the progressive present. Progressive when you use ing, right? Respectively. The progressive present is frequently found in narrative material, as in Matthew 8, verses 25. Lord, save us, we are what? We are drowning. One other use of the present tense deserves brief mention here. The historical present is used when a past event is viewed with the vividness of a present occurrence, as in Mark 1:40, and a leper comes to him. This usage is characteristic of a lively narrative in general and is a special feature of Mark's Gospel, 151 times, where it frequently introduces new scenes or participants. So in this case, he refers to this as the what? As the historical present. So even though the present tense is used, a leper comes to him, right? But what he's doing is using, the present tense language to capture an event pretty much that probably would have occurred or something of that sort, because he's telling a narrative of a past event, but he used present tense words, so to speak. And he says this gives life, life to the text, almost like he came right now. No, he came a long time ago. Note that even when an action occurred in the past, the author may choose to depict that action in the present time. Hence, one must always distinguish carefully between reality, how the action happened, and depiction, how the author presents the action. So there is reality versus depiction, how it is depicted. The future tense, as its name implies, is usually predictive in force, as in John 14:26. He will teach you all things. The Holy Spirit will teach you all things. However, the future may also be used imperatively to express the command, as in Luke 1:31. You will call, that is, you are to call his name Jesus, right? Even though the baby is not born yet, the baby is going to be born, but the future tense there gives you strong imperative sense, right? Imperative sense. This usage reflects Hebrew influence. Finally, the statement of a generally accepted fact is occasionally expressed by the future tense, as in Ephesians 5:31, a man will leave father and mother. This latter example is neither predictive nor imperatival. It simply asserts a performance that may rightfully be expected under normal conditions. This usage is sometimes called gnomic. Remember, you don't pronounce the G, but gnomic future from gnome, maxim. It will be recalled that the kind of action in the future tense may be either aoristic, I will loose, or imperfective, I will be loosing. Its usual aspect in the New Testament is aoristic, with greater emphasis on the time element than the present. I will prepare a place for you, John 14 and verse 3, is aoristic, while the one who began a good work in you will bring it to completion, Philippians 1:6, is imperfective, mean continuing work, right? So in these cases, you notice that even though sometimes the text is speaking in the future tense, right, you can look for imperfective words. But there are times where the text is really speaking in the imperfective, like an ongoing work, ongoing something happening right now, but it uses future tense words or imperatival sense, So the sense, the aspect, and all of that is going to come from what? It's going to come from the context. So just because you will call his name Jesus, right? Or call his name Jesus, this is going to be the baby. It doesn't mean the baby is here as yet, but you are to call his name Jesus, you know? And that is a strong command. You don't really have an option there. You know, future tense is giving you a command of something that you must follow, so to speak. So the names progressive, predictive, nomic, and so forth are at best conventional designations. As labels, they are quite unimportant. What is important are the meanings associated with the names. It is the context. Here we go again, my friend. Context and not the tense that determines these meanings. This fact should be borne in mind here and in subsequent lessons wherever such labels are used. So labels are not scripture, okay? So you don't say, well, I'm going to label this aorist, and like God himself sent down this label from above, all right? So you will recall that the Greek question mark is the semicolon, hence luo men means we loose or we are loosing, but luo men, do we loose? So notice the question mark there. Do we loose or are we loosing? Why? Because you're now asking a question mark. You're now asking a question. So you have to construct the word, the phrase in such a way to represent the question, right? So that's the omega type verbs. We were introduced to another type of verbs, and this is known as the ME type verbs, ME. As already observed, let's rub out some of these notes. The most frequently occurring verb of the me conjugation is me. So we refer to this as me. Oh, my M is me conjugation. Okay. Me conjugation. Me is the most popular one. I am. Grammarians label me a copulative verb from Latin copulo, I link together, because it links subject and predicate. As in John 1:5, ho theos phos estin. God's subject is light, predicate. Ho theos, so you see, God is, this is right here, and light. Since me expresses a state of being rather than an action, it has neither active, middle, nor passive voice. Note the movable nu in the third person singular and plural. So here you go again. Here's the movable nu, third person singular and plural. Sorry. Which is, so this is here, right? So in this case, it is linking God and light. So that is how they say it's a copulative. It links together, right? So first person singular, me. Second person, a. Notice the circumflex over the iota. Third person singular, st. And it could be estin. Why? If there is a verb, not verb, but a vowel that begins the next word. And then you have me, I am. A, you are. Estin, he is. Esmen, we are. Este, you are. AC, they are, or asin. Notice here, you have the men, you have the te, and then you have the si, or the si, right? Si or the sin. Now, don't get confused with the sigma here. That has nothing to do with the future tense, okay? It's just that the nature of this word requires the sigma, right? And you say, how do you know? Well, because of the type of verb you're dealing with, right? That's how you know. You're dealing with a me type verb. I am, you are, he is. Esmen, este, ac. I would say just memorize this chart, write it out, and try to, reproduce it like you're doing an exam. If you do that, you're going to be familiarize yourself with these verbs. It says, except for a, which is the second person singular, the present tense of me is said to be enclitic, throwing its accent back on the last syllable of the preceding word, as in ho de argos estin ho cosmos. So in this case, it is making it clear. Now the field is the world, Matthew 13:38. For further discussion on enclitics and of Greek accents in general, he says, see Appendix 1. So enclitics has to do with throwing the accent back, right? On the last syllable. So whatever word was before this word here. So if I could just mark a X right here. X, X, X. So this word, right, would have an emphasized pronunciation on the last syllable of that word. Why? Because it is the next word that you're dealing with is an ME type verb, right? So in that case, because it throws its accent back, they refer to it as enclitics. Enclitics. Right. Let's talk about negatives. There's a way to say no, not, and so on in Greek. Some of my notes here. Let me get some of that. I'm trying to get this out, but it's not going. Some of the other notes could stay. But anyhow, the negative is not expressed in Greek. Sorry, the negative is not, negative not is expressed in Greek by the verb oo. So this is how you say not. Oo. Oo. Not you. Yeah, but that's how you say the verb. That's how you say not or no. This word is used as the negative with verbs in the indicative mood. So a different word, may, is used with all other moods. So you have two. You have oo and may, right? What am I saying? What am I writing there? Let me get the rubber here. So you have oo, and then you also have may, right? So both negatives precede the word to which they refer. So uluo means I do not lose. Uluomen means we do not lose, etc. So ulues, you do not lose. All right? Second person singular. So before a word beginning with a vowel though, you add a kappa. So you have u plus a kappa, and the kappa there if there is a vowel. So in this case, you have ook, akuo, because akuo begins with alpha. So ook, akuo, I do not hear. And before a rough breathing mark, remember Esau, the rough breathing mark, you have ook, you have a key. So example, so here you have ook, etoi matzo. Why? Because this here is a rough breathing mark right here. That's the Esau. So right before a rough breathing mark, you add a key. You have a key. So you have u, regular. Then you have may. Pretty much in every other form. But if you have a vowel or a Esau, I just call them an Esau, right? Which is a rough breathing mark. You add a kappa or a key. So you end up with ook or ook. Right? They are very close in pronunciation, right? Ook and ook. Very close. That's it for negatives. That's how you say not. That's how you negate something. We do not. You do not. I do not. We will not. You will not. They will not. Right? That's how you do it right there. Now, this is going to be one of the most important parts, which is parsing. Parsing. So when it comes to parsing, it's very important because you have to be able to break down a verb, to know what's going on with that verb. And this is going to tell you whether it's imperative, whether it's subjunctive, whether it's infinitive, or whether it's indicative, right? Parsing tells you whether it's second or third person, what the tense is, if it's present, if it's future, if it's past tense. All of that, to break that down, you put that in one category called parsing. So let's see what it says. Finite verbs in Greek convey tense. Okay, we know this. Tense, voice, mood, person, number. To parse a verb is to identify these 5 elements. So big 5 elements. For example, so 5 elements along with the source. So remember, source is the lexical form, vocabulary form, root form. So for instance, if you have a word like lu o men, what is the source? Lu, right? Because that's the lexical form, right? So the key, when you learn how to parse a word, you know how to systematically break down the word so that you can identify its lexical form, pretty much. So if you were supposed to look for it in a dictionary or anything like that, you know how to find it. For example, to parse luo men, I really didn't even know lower men was right here. Honestly, I didn't even see it. The idea just came to me, you know. But anyhow, we are working together. We say that it is present tense. So notice lower men is what? Present tense. So you have remember you have 5 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one is going to be tense, right? Present tense. Then the next one is going to be voice. And it's active voice. Next one is going to be mood. It is indicative mood. And then the next one is going to be person. Is the first person. And next one is going to be number. It is plural. So plural, first person, and the mood is indicative. I just put IND right there. Let me rub this out. I just put, let's get this out. Sorry. Come on, it's not going. But anyhow, I just put IND for indicative. What voice it is? It is the active voice. And what tense it is? It is the present tense. It's not past tense, it's not future tense, it's not passive, it's not middle, it's active, and so on. And the mood is not imperative, it's not subjunctive, it's indicative. And then the person is not second person, it's first person. And then the number is not singular, it's plural. So these are the 5 elements of every verb. Master this, and you have, you can straighten your shirt a little bit. You know what I mean? But this is very important. Parsing is very important because all of Greek is built on parsing. All of Greek. This is probably one of the most important elements that you have been introduced to so far. But guess what? You notice everything kind of build up to this culmination. So you were introduced to mood, you were introduced to number, you were introduced to tense, you were introduced to aspect, you were introduced to voice, all of that, because it's coming here. And so keep this in mind, and we will proceed from here. All right. God bless.